I love marshmallow. It's a really great plant, very sustainable. And so I just really have fallen in love with it as one of my many favorite digestive support herbs.
Welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through our relationship with the living world around us. Today we're talking about one of the most soothing herbs that we have, marshmallow. It's a plant that deeply protects the gut, the throat, and other mucosal membrane tissues. I'm joined by the fabulous herbalist Maria Noël Groves, and she shares about mucilage, moistening, and why this herb can be such an important ally when tissues are irritated, inflamed, or in need of repair. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up so more plant lovers can find us, and be sure to stay with us until the very end for your herbal tidbit. Maria, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm always honored to be here, and it's always a lot of fun to chat with you.
Oh, well, that's how I feel. And this is your third time on the show. So folks who might not have listened to your previous podcast or who want to re-listen because they are chock full of information, we had you on talking about lemon balm at one point and motherwort. And this is your third appearance, which puts you in the very upper echelon of podcast guests here at Herbs with Rosalee, and which is an indication of how much we love having you. So thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And clearly I have a little thing for nervous system support, judging from the first two. But we're going a slightly different direction today.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And since you've been on the show before and I've asked about your plant path and we've already been there, we're going to tread into some new territory today. And I'm curious if you have anything to share about your time studying with Michael Moore, because he is such a character, so incredibly influential in North American herbalism. And I never got the chance to meet him. So I always love to hear stories and or anything you'd like to share about, your time studying with him.
Yeah, he was such a character. I first learned about him. I interviewed him for an article I was writing for Natural Health magazine back when I was an editor there. And back in the day, we used to record them and then I would transcribe them. I'm a pretty quick typer. And we did an interview on nervous system support herbs, actually. And he had so many great one-liners that I ultimately transcribed the entire interview. And I probably still have that somewhere, either on hard drive somewhere or a printout somewhere. And certainly many of his sayings have become part of things that I teach when I'm teaching. And I definitely credit him for my love of anatomy and physiology and just sort of the way we kind of look at the body and how to support it. He was just such a tremendous influence there. But I loved going to herb school. It was one of the best times of my life, time frames. And just sitting in class, listening to him talk, he was, he's not a super move around kind of guy anyway, but at that point in time, he was not in the best of health. And so he just pretty much sat in the chair and showed pictures of the plants and talked about them. And we'd all type away, this group of 30 women and one guy. And he would know when he had gone on enough of a tangent, I think, because he'd suddenly stop and realize nobody was typing anymore. Because he was a rambler for sure. Yeah. And but later listening to those recordings, because we saved them all, and on the first book tour I was traveling around a lot, so I listened to about half the year's worth of recordings while I was driving, and it was just so brilliant. Even it was more than 10 years later at that point, and it was just wow, he was so ahead of his time even then. So just really owe a lot to him in my own life as an herbalist, and I think in the herbal community as well. I was really grateful to get to study with him.
Yeah. And he's one of those, as so many herbalists are, but he was such a prominent figure, and he was such an extensive wildcrafter, knew botany and plant identification so well. And then he was a teacher and he was a practitioner, and he just it's he did all things herbs. And he really brought the North American Materia Medica to light. I think, he just helped really bring that forth.
Definitely. Yeah. I had hoped after I left, I was I wonder if I could write a book like he did for the Northeast. And then as time went on, I'm really not that much of a forager, so it really wouldn't have been quite. And then I got into writing more of the body system side of things. But yeah, I really just reading through his books, they seem dry when you first look at them, and then you actually read them and they're hysterical and full of information at the same time, but just that dry sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember back in the day, before all this, like all these published books. I mean, he was one of the few books that you would have as an herbalist. And yeah, they are just so much fun. I still crack them open, and yeah, just the humor and the knowledge in there. It's really, yeah, a lot of gratitude for Michael and all that he gave us. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, since another new development for you since we've last talked is that you are now a member of the AHG, American Herbalist Guild board. And I'm curious just to hear a little bit about that. Like, that's like no small feat. It's a volunteer position, takes a lot of time, I imagine. So I'm curious, like, what called you to be a part of that?
Sure. And I'll state for the record, just, to cross my T's and dot my I's, that as I talk about it, I'm talking about it as myself as a person and not as, a representative of the HG. But I did a lot of service work in my local herbal community in my earlier days. From like 2009, we launched the New Hampshire Herbal Network, and I was the coordinator and ran that for about 10 years. And it actually became an HG chapter about halfway through. And then I passed it on to other leadership and went back for a little while to give a little support during a tricky transition time, and just to be the treasurer and help them set up some systems. And otherwise, for the most part, since I left that role mostly in just before the first book published, I have been living a more selfish life that doesn't involve a whole lot of volunteerism. And so a few years ago, I thought, maybe I might join the HG board at some point in time, but like not this year, I'm writing a book. And then the next year, like not this year, I'm writing a book again. Not this year, I'm moving. But it was something that was on my mind. And then I was really honored that as time went on, a couple of different people that I respect in the organization asked me to join the board. And I was like, it actually is on my mind. And I'm super honored that you've asked, but I don't have time right now. I don't have the bandwidth. And so it was part of my plan a while back when I was finishing up books and thinking like, all right, pretty soon I finally won't have a book over my head, book project over my head. I can finally start to take on a volunteer job, much to the dismay of my husband, who's like, please don't. Like, I just know how much boards take, of energy and all that. Like, please don't. I'm like, I really feel like I should. And so I did. And so this summer I ran for the board and was elected and ended up getting appointed early, and currently actually am somehow the interim chair, and we'll see how things continue. But I'm very excited for being on the board. I'm really excited with the other folks that are on the board with me, and of course our new executive director, Erica. And so I have really high hopes that the HG is going to be doing some really great things in the next year and the years to come. So but it is a lot of work. It's volunteering, and it always takes way more time than they would tell you at the, at the pre-meeting when you say, how much time is this going to take out of my life? Like multiply that by 10 is probably more realistic. And that's true for, I've been involved with other nonprofits and boards before. That's pretty typical. And so the board is, in this case, it's a governance board. So we don't do the day-to-day stuff. The executive staff, which would be Erica and her team, the executive director and all of them, do the day-to-day stuff that you kind of think of for an organization. But the board is focused more on the policies, the procedures, keeping an eye on things like finances and all of that. So a lot of things that seem pretty boring at face value, but are actually quite important for the functioning of the organization. And so I ended up on the governance committee of the board pretty quickly and never really expected to be part of that. But I found that that's a committee I love being on, because we get to see things before they go to the full board and discuss them as smaller groups and kind of pre-approve and refine them. And so that's been pretty exciting. And we have a really great group in governance that represents a variety of viewpoints. So if it makes it through that, then we know probably it'll be good on the full board, because we might not always agree, but if we can agree, then probably everybody else will too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your service, because that does sound totally horrible. I will just be honest. But I'm, I am a member of the HG, and I, believe in their higher calling, and so excited with Erica in the executive director role now. And so, yeah, I just feel like right now, honestly, just like a lot of gratitude that you find this exciting and that you want to do it. Because I'm like, all right, You
There's
and
no, I mean,
others
I'm
are
a
the
member
ones.
of a lot of other like organizations and nonprofits and things like that. And except for my little local group, I'd say there's no other organization that I feel super passionately about that has made such a big difference in my own life and has crafted my own path from early student and all the way, even before student. I was interviewing them before I was an herb student, and then all the way through to where I am now. I've probably taken advantage of almost every single offering that the HG
Oh,
does. And I'm that annoying person that would call to ask questions or type things and not to them. So they've been pretty instrumental for a couple of decades in my life. So I'm honored to be able to
yeah, it sounds like
be
you're
in
really the perfect
service.
person
Yeah.
to be in a
Yeah.
service role. So again, thank you. Yeah, deeply appreciated. Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe we could dive into your chosen herb now. Do you feel ready for that?
I do. Yes, that's a much more fun topic than board work.
Governance, yeah.
Yes.
Especially marshmallow. Oh my gosh, I love marshmallow. I feel like marshmallow is medicine. There's a lot to love there. I love marshmallow, the plant, even. I mean, I just like get giddy to spend time with marshmallow in my garden. So I'm really excited you chose this herb. Excited to hear why you chose it. Let's maybe start there. Why did marshmallow
Yeah.
call out to you, Maria?
I love marshmallow. It's a really great plant. Like you said, I have grown it in my garden. I'm still getting it established at the new property. The old property, I had a really lovely plant, and I just would go and pet it. If anybody doesn't know,
Yeah.
this is it can be quite tall, and it's a very soft plant. It's got little hairs on it. And it's
Begs
just
to
this
be
very delicate, it's big but delicate looking plant. It's very light colors. And as you touch it, it's just soft. It's just such a lovely, everything about this plant is about softness as far as what it brings to our bodies. I know for folks who work with herbs and more emotional, spiritual, the sort of the vibe of this plant is around softness. And then certainly how it feels like physically, the physical energetics of it as well. So I love that about the plant. I am somebody who can occasionally have pretty good digestion, but I had ulcers years ago. I was combining a lot of ibuprofen for menstrual cramps in my early days, and then went to a wedding and drank some alcohol at the same time. And that gave me a nice little ulcer. And the marshmallow was one of the plants that was in my protocol to support it. And so my digestive system's still pretty good nowadays, but if I start to feel it getting a little cranky, marshmallow is one of the favorite plants. But I just enjoy putting it in my teas anyway, even if I didn't have a digestive reason to include it. I love the way that it made the mucilage. I'm sure we'll be diving into the mucilage a little bit more. I love the way that it gives a velvety, moistening quality to the tea and a little bit of a sweetness. And so marshmallow root or marshmallow leaf, or I have become quite fond of linden also as a mucilaginous herb. There's a good chance that one of those three is going to be in most of the tea blends that I make at home. And so I just have a big love of it. I think that it's an underutilized plant that is easy to grow, easy to cultivate, and like get lots of it, especially if you're working with the leaves. You can harvest jars full of it in a season because it's such a robust plant, very economical and easy to buy, very sustainable. And so I just really have fallen in love with it as one of my many favorite digestive support herbs. So that's it in a nutshell, but we can dive deeper into any one of those.
All right, let's do it. Wherever you'd like to go.
So of course we know that marshmallow is, or hopefully we know, maybe we don't, and you're about to find it right now, that marshmallow is a very mucilaginous herb. So it's rich in these complex saccharides, these polysaccharides that create a mucilaginous or mucus-like quality when they come into contact with water. And some people find that viscerally repelling, but if it's not too slimy, because if you just take the powder of the root and you mix it with water, it literally does become the consistency of snot, and that can be a bit off-putting. But if it's in a more cut and sifted form and it has like a higher percentage of water, it gets more of this kind of not thick, but just velvety texture that's quite nice. And at least I think it's quite nice, almost like if you had a really gelatinous broth and then you warmed it up so it wasn't literal jelly, and you just kind of felt that extra quality. It's just a little bit more hydrating, a little bit more moistening to the body than if you were just drinking plain water or plain broth for that matter. And so the mucilage gives a moistening quality that's going to benefit any of the tissues it directly comes in contact to. So from the mouth all the way down through the digestive system. And then there probably is also this kind of reflex response of other mucosal membranes that even if they're not, the marshmallow isn't directly touching it. And this is a Jim McDonald thing that I learned. I don't know if there's any science on it, but it makes sense. It feels right in the body. That as your tongue comes into contact with it, those mucosal membranes elsewhere go, ooh, let's like splurk out a little bit more mucilage or mucus, if you will, to moisten our own tissue. So it could potentially be affecting the reproductive organs, the urinary tract, the lungs, even though it's not going to come into direct contact with those areas. It's a great lung herb for moistening. And when you've got dryness or irritation, whether it's lungs or anywhere else, dryness, irritation, even with mucus where it seems like there's a lot of it, but maybe it's thick and stuck, oftentimes having marshmallow will help sort of loosen it up a little bit so that we just get things moving better. And so there aren't too many situations where I would consider marshmallow to be totally contraindicated from an energetic standpoint. But generally speaking, we're working with it more for signs of dryness, irritation, inflammation, and then the digestive system. That's certainly true. So it's one of the herbs that if we're having reflux and it's causing damage, or if we are, or irritation or any of those things, or if we have any other digestive situation really where we're getting just that sense of discomfort from dryness, inflammation, irritation, you may need medical care as well, but depending upon the scenario, but marshmallow tea might be a wonderful addition to your routine. And there's so much more to the mucilage as well. It helps feed our beneficial bacteria. So it can be a microbiome supporting thing to be consuming on a regular basis. And when they get to chew, when those little critters get to chew on fibers and polysaccharides, they're less likely to chew on your intestinal lining because they'll get hungry. And there is research on this, that if folks aren't consuming fibers and things in their diet, that the critters get a bit hungry and they'll start to chew on the mucus lining of the gut, which can contribute to digestive issues over the long haul. So making sure that we have these kinds of complex starches in our diet and lifestyle is going to feed the microbiome in a good way and just really protect the gut and help it heal as well. So those are a few basic things. I will say that within the marshmallow, there's a continuum. So you have the root, and that's the part that's the most popular, and you can get it as a powder or you can get it cut and sifted, and which is where it's in little bits and pieces versus a powder like we would normally see for teas. And they're both good. The powder you can just mix with water or food or whatever and take it. That's going to be the most mucilaginous. Like, as I was saying, if you added it to water, it would become like this like glob of snot in your cup, which is therapeutically beneficial, but not always palatable especially if you're squeamish. So that's pretty strong and mucilaginous. The cut and sifted roots, pretty mucilaginous, but a little bit gentler. And oftentimes we'll just do a cold or a hot infusion, but especially if it sits over time. This mucilage best extracts in water. It's a water-loving constituent. And it also is something that does better over time. So the longer it sits. And it also does better with cold. Although I personally feel like if you start with hot water, it's fine. It's really more about the time. But listen to your body. I know different herbalists have different points of view on that. I don't mind warming up my marshmallow tea or starting with hot water as long as it's sat for a long time. In my side-by-side comparisons, it's not an issue. But
can I interject there for a bit?
Yes, please do.
I do like to say a great way to start an herbal fight is to walk into a room and ask about the hot or cold infusion of marshmallow and see where it goes. One thing I think, you said like the time is so important for the marshmallow. And that's something I would encourage folks to do is like, try it for yourself, like infuse it for a half an hour, taste it, infuse it for an hour, taste it, taste it, what is it like after 8 hours? And I think that'll answer a lot of questions for folks in terms of that. And then same with the hot and cold, you could try the two of them, taste it. So it's not even something, it's a fun, like personal organoleptic understanding And it's not even that the 8 hours has to be better than the 2 hours, but like one time you might want one or the other depending on the circumstance. So it's a good thing to just test out. Another thing, I don't know if you've run into this, Maria, but my students will, I've had this happen numerous times where they say, I made the marshmallow infusion, let it sit overnight, and it didn't get slimy. And what I've been able to narrow it down to, I think, is just old marshmallow root. And I think there's just like older marshmallow root out there just on the, people got it from a place that didn't have a lot of turnover with marshmallow root or whatever. And then it's just like, it doesn't get the slime. So I always encourage people, like, if you infuse a good amount of it overnight, whether hot or cold, and it's not slimy the next day or somewhat like jelly mucilaginous, it might be old.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always had pretty good marshmallows, so I've never experienced that. I also wonder if it's an expectation, like if they're expecting it to come out looking like Jell-O, right? And it's really more just that it's a subtler quality of mucilage than when you're doing it in that kind of a tea base.
Yeah.
But maybe it is being old, because it does attract moisture. Even when you're drying it, it takes forever to dry unless you're in a really arid climate or you are using a dehydrator or some other method to really boost that dehydration process, because any bit of moisture in the air, it just like sucks it back in again. So I wonder too, if it's older, if it's absorbed like just enough moisture that it doesn't release very well. I'm just totally guessing on that. But I did the test you're talking about. That's how I came to my personal conclusion. As I spent a day and I started with hot water and I started with cold water, and every hour or two I'd take a sip of each and then let them keep steeping. And over time, I really didn't notice a big difference if it was marshmallow only, at least from mine. And the longer it sat, so certainly if it was 12 hours or 24 hours, it tended to get even more, velvety mucilage quality. But a lot of times if I'm making a quick tea, I might let it sit for a couple hours and it's not as thick, but it's still nice. And that just fits my schedule better.
From now on, let's always say velvety instead of snotty. I think let's make it packed.
Velvety is nice. I mean, and as the leaf feels, it's a velvety feeling leaf when
it is.
When you pet it as well. But I also love working with the leaves and the flowers, and they are also quite mucilaginous, and the kinds of starches that are in there, even though they're still mucilaginous starches, I think they're probably chemically slightly different from what's in the root. And so there are occasionally people who don't tolerate the root, that it makes them really gassy. And this might be something that they will just adapt to if they take the marshmallow on a regular basis. Because if you don't normally eat fiber and you suddenly eat fiber, you're probably going to be gassy. And mucilage is sort of in the family of fiber, if you will. It is technically kind of like a FODMAP. So FODMAP, FODMAP, is a term that refers to like fructooligosaccharides, disaccharides, polyols, and whatever. I can never remember all the different things it stands for. But basically, it's a group of complex starches that if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO or other forms of dysbiosis, that when they come into contact with those complex starches, they can ferment and aggravate gas and bloating and sometimes reflux. If somebody takes a spoonful of marshmallow root powder or slippery elm root powder and they get reflux from it, that would be a sign to me that they might want to go get tested for SIBO, because most of the time reflux would not be caused by those things. You might get gas and bloating, but not usually reflux in the other situations. So sometimes with some people, it's just a matter of adapting. For some folks, for wherever their digestive system is at with their dysbiosis or whatever it may be, it might just not be the right plant for them right now. And they need to address that and then maybe later come back to marshmallow. But the marshmallow leaf almost always is well tolerated. So I often, if there's any question, if I'm in clinic and they know they have SIBO or they are showing that they're having a hard time digesting fiber, I'll often just start them off with marshmallow leaf. It's cheap, it's easy, it extracts well. And even if you don't have any of those issues, I think it's a great tea ingredient as well. I love putting it in my leafy tea blends or my floral tea blends because it just seems to blend well with them and elevate their flavor and their balance the energetics of the teas, because most of our herbs are kind of warming and drying. And so adding a little marshmallow leaf or linden leaf or whatever it may be kind of balances that out really nicely. So I'm really on a mission to get folks to work more with marshmallow leaf although the root is still great as long as you tolerate it, and most people do. And then certainly the powder has its place as well. But oftentimes I'm working with the cut and sifted forms in my beverage teas, and they're just so delightful and enjoyable, especially when you combine them with others. You actually have a really great recipe that we might be featuring in the next book, but you and Rebecca Altman had a recipe on resilience. It was like a resilience tea. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was marshmallow, oat straw, and shatavari. And love that. And it kind of amplifies that very bland, mucilaginous. And you can add other flavorful things if you want. But for a lot of people, it just feels immediately soothing. Even though I wouldn't say that marshmallow is officially unnerving, maybe oat straw is a little, and shatavari can be even more so. But there is something soothing about being like physically soothed, and to some extent, that does translate to a more soothed nervous system as well. So I love that, and that was a really delicious tea. I make it every now and then.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that person who's like burnt up and dried out, the soothing qualities are so lovely.
Yes, totally. And I will say the one thing that I've been playing with, and it's still early to say, yes, this is definitely a thing or not. But for those folks who do have the dysbiosis where they don't digest fibers very well, oftentimes I will start them with a marshmallow leaf, make sure they're good with that. And then I might have them get a little baggie of the root too, and just play with like slowly adding it in, because I suspect that will be a way to help retrain the digestive system and the microbiome. And it has seemed to be helpful in the folks who have done it, but it's really only been a handful. So I can't say for sure just yet, but it's something you folks could play with at home. It's generally a pretty safe and well-tolerated plant.
I really love that, Maria, because so often in years past, what's gone on with digestion is someone's like, oh, I can't digest that. And it gets off the plate and like, just like, oh, I'm done with that. And so I've been really into the retraining, just as you're saying, like, how can we retrain so that, like, people's diets don't get simpler and simpler, which is in itself not going to promote health, but like more and more complex. But yeah, there's like a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And you're just kind of making the introduction, like, hello, marshmallow, hello, gut bacteria.
For sure.
Let's eat a little bit. This is a first date. You don't have to spend the night together. We're just doing a little bit of introduction.
I love that. Yeah. And marshmallow is a nice introduction because it usually, the leaf is almost always well tolerated. And then the fruit, a little bit more so.
Yeah.
I am alarmed, as I think you are too, by how many people just are digesting fewer and fewer and fewer things well. And it seems like fiber in particular is a big problem. We have a whole section on fiber in the book, but fiber in particular is this thing that I'm seeing fewer and fewer people eating. And it's like, fiber is really healthy. And I know you're not tolerating it well, but the more you avoid it, the worse it often gets. So like, how can we retrain our bodies to be able to digest more foods is not always easy. And sometimes limiting a few things might help at first, but I don't love this big, ever increasing elimination diet. I don't think it's going to be helpful for most people in the long run.
Yeah.
It was a tricky section of the book to write because I also don't want people, being like, well, I have anaphylaxis, but I'm going to give it a try.
Right.
And while technically desensitization might help with that, that's not something I really want people doing in an uncontrolled setting.
Right. So. I saw a really funny meme the other day that said, fiber really needs to get the publicist that protein does, because everybody's talking about protein, but yet, less than 5% of the population, according to this meme that I did not fact check, is getting the fiber that they need. And I just thought that was so funny because it is true. I mean, like, my feeds are just full of like nutritional advice, and it's like protein. It's like, oh, fiber needs the same publicist. I need to get on the same bandwagon.
Somebody has to steal this idea from me because I like coming up with ideas, but then I don't end up implementing them. So somebody with more artistic, I want to see like a little, like almost like a Candyland thing that you can put on your fridge that has little magnets for it. and then has a list of like how much protein or how much fiber rather is in different foods, so that you can have races with your family members of like how much fiber you're getting in your food for the day. Probably people would want an app version of that too, but I love the idea of something visceral that is on the fridge that everybody is.
That is really cool.
Doing. I have not created it. I'm not that artistic, so maybe somebody else will.
Of course, you know what I want to do that with? Phytonutrients.
Oh yes, yes. We'll be blowing it out of the water with
be a part of it.
yes, for sure.
Yeah,
and phytonutrients are great for your microbiome as well. Tom has easily actually clued me in on that one, and there's been quite a bit of research on like bioflavonoids, and the deeply pigmented things are really great for. It's not just about your typical probiotics and prebiotics, but eating more of those polyphenols will also help benefit your microbiome too. So
especially the diversity, they love it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was a little tangent. Marshmallow,
yes.
Yeah, we just saying fiber
marshmallow. Back to marshmallow. Let's see other things we might say about it. I guess as a caution, not one I get too panicky about, but because it is a fiber, and especially when you're taking it in the powdered form, there is a risk that things that you take at the same time of it would not be as well absorbed, that it will kind of grab onto them and not, they'll break down more slowly or not quite as well and get taken out of the body. So if you were taking medications, you'd probably want to separate them by a couple hours. I suspect that the more velvety teas are less of a concern there, but I don't have any proof of that particular thing. But if you were taking spoonfuls of powder, for sure, separate those by a bit. They may
this is one that I'm interested in, and I've been asking a lot of people about it. So I'm really glad you brought it up. I think it's one of those things that, like, as far as I can tell, we just don't really know. I asked David Winston about it because I'm studying with him right now, and he was kind of like, I suspect it's overblown, he says. But just like you're saying, if you're taking life-saving or important medications that you really need to be absorbing well, then like, why risk it? In this place of not knowing. But yeah, I wish we knew more about that, honestly.
I wish we did too. I think we know a fair amount more about just basic fiber supplements. I'm not as worried about eating fiber in the diet as taking like a glob of a isolated fiber supplement kind of thing. But I had a client who was she still has me as an herbalist, and she also has a naturopathic doctor whom I respect. So oftentimes we'll be doing different things. And so she had a whole regime of stuff, and then the naturopath recommended that she take slippery elm powder for her reflux. And so she started taking literal spoonfuls. I think it was a teaspoon or a tablespoon of it. And two interesting things happened. One, her reflux went through the roof. That was when we were like, maybe you have SIBO, which I believe she did have. I think that was confirmed later. And then the other thing that happened was she started not having all the benefits that she had been getting from her supplements, and she was taking them all together. So I don't know for sure, but I wondered if mixing that slippery elm powder in with all of her tinctures and whatever else she was taking and swallowing them down with her pills was inhibiting that. So I just suggested that she separate it. There aren't too many scenarios where I, as an herbalist, recommend people take spoonfuls of marshmallow or slippery elm root powder. And slippery elm is very similar to marshmallow root, but is a lot less sustainable. And it has more of a maple flavor instead of OD. There's like an oatmeal flavor to marshmallow, which is kind of bland and nice. But and it's fine. Slippery elm is fine, but I just like marshmallow more because it's more sustainable.
Yeah. I love that nuance, Maria, because it's kind of like, it basically where you're saying is like teaspoons of the powder mixed in water, which is this like big sloppiness, the same as like a lightly velvety tea. Like it's just, there's going to be a range there, most likely.
Yes, that's my suspicion. I don't tend to caution my clients from having their gut healing teas that happen to have a fair amount of marshmallow. A lot of times it's like 40% marshmallow is in their gut healing teas, and they're sipping it over the course of the day and a quart of it. And like I don't tell them to not have supplements and things at the same time. I just don't think it's going to be a problem, but I can't say that 100%. And I forget about it until my students in their drug interaction classes start writing that in their homework, like, no, don't have your gut healing tea. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's a problem, but I see where you're getting at.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you said that marshmallow tastes a bit like oats. I hadn't really thought of that, but as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah. which of course made me think of your creamy marshmallow nutmeg overnight infusion recipe that you're sharing with us. This looks so good. I've never done this before with the oat milk. So I'm going to let you take it from here. If you could please describe it for us and let us know what's in it and why we'd want to use it. I'm going to go first of all that this looks really yummy. So
It's pretty tasty. Yeah. And anybody that I brought it to when I bring it to classes on gut healing, people are like, oh my goodness, this is delicious. You could serve it in a cafe. People will be very happy with that. So I start with your typical overnight infusion of marshmallow root. You could use the leaf, but the leaf does have a little bit different flavor. So it wouldn't be quite as yummy if you were working with the leaf. But so I'll do about one very heaping teaspoon per cup of water. Let that sit overnight, and that's your marshmallow infusion. Or sometimes I'll even go 24 hours, and then I'll strain that out. And it's fine. You can have that on its own, but it's kind of boring and bland. And so what I'll do is add a couple ounces of creamy oat milk, like a barista type or a full fat type is going to be a little bit creamier than non-fat, but whatever you want to use. I use the full fat kind. And then I will add some grated nutmeg because I'm a nutmeg fiend. I love nutmeg. And I'm trying to remember what else. And then maple. So maple sweetens it up a little bit. You could skip the maple if you wanted to, but it definitely gives it a whole nother level. And so it's this sort of reminds me a little bit of like a very milder tasting chai, or, what do we have? Like those London fog latte type things, but it's just really, really soothing and delicious. And just having it, especially if you serve it warm, it's even nicer to drink warm. And it's just like swap your hot cocoa for it. I mean, chocolate's great and all. It won't be energizing like hot cocoa, but if you after a cold day and you sit there on your couch, snuggled in your blankets in front of the fire, and you're sipping your cocoa or your I keep saying cocoa, you're sipping your creamy oat milk marshmallow. Just so delicious. And you can use other milks if you want to instead of the oat milk, but there is a potential benefit if people are having irritated gut lining. Oats and oat milk are mucilaginous as well, and it's pretty low in protein, which for the most part is not a great thing. But when it comes to folks who have really irritated gut linings, like ulcers or mainly ulcers, I guess would be the biggie. Having a lot of protein will kick up digestive juices, which in most situations is fine. But if you have active wounds on the gut, it's not always very well tolerated. And this is nice. Also, having clients who've had stress gut and ulcers, and they were also doing other therapeutics with their conventional practitioners. But it was really nice in all that like irritation and stress and discomfort to have something that was physically immediately soothing, helped promote the healing, and was really enjoyable at the same time. But it's also just a beverage that people could just drink for fun because it's quite tasty.
Oh my gosh, aren't herbs incredible like that though?
They are.
Like this is a yummy beverage that you can enjoy in front of the fire, curled up with a book, or if you need serious medicine, it also works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
I have an
it would be
idea
lovely with like rose or vanilla. I mean, you could throw more things in it. A little bit of beet powder to make it pink, and you can really have fun
I'm doing
with
that.
it.
Yeah, pink makes everything better. I'm a believer. A little bit of cardamom, maybe.
Ooh, yes, cardamom.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on it. I have an idea I'm going to run by you, Maria. So I'm going to date this a little bit. We're filming this in mid-December right now. So we're thick in the middle of eggnog season right now. And my husband and I have this recipe that we use for like a homemade eggnog recipe. That's like, I mean, we've been doing it for like 10 years at least. And it's just like, we bring it to all the parties. It's a big hit. The one thing about that recipe is it doesn't have the thickness that like store-bought eggnog has, which I really like. But that is generally carrageenan, which I don't have a problem with, but still it's just like I will buy the store-bought stuff just to get that thickness because I like it so much. But my homemade stuff tastes way better. It's a mouthfeel thing, right? So I just had this idea 3 days ago. I was like, what if the night before we make the eggnog, we infuse marshmallow root into the milk and let that sit overnight. The next day, strain it off and then make the eggnog as is. What do you think?
Maybe it's worth trying. Does milk have, the question is going to be does milk with all of its own natural fat and protein, is it as good of a solvent at
Yeah, that's the
extracting,
question.
but I bet you it could. It's worth trying.
I wouldn't want to
Or
water it down,
even,
like what,
yeah, I would give it a try. You'll have to let us know.
yeah.
I don't
Okay.
usually, I
There's
used
probably
to
a
make
lot of
homemade
different
oat
ways
milk
to
or
go. Like
what's
you could
that?
maybe make a thick tea, like maybe not like a whole bunch of water, but like a really thick tea and add that. Maybe it's a little water. I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead with what you're
It's
going to say.
worth
You used
playing
to
with
make
it.
homemade eggnog too.
I used to actually, that was my breakfast growing up. Not, I mean, just not the really thick stuff, but just my breakfast growing up would be to make a smoothie with a raw egg and some milk and some vanilla extract and some sweetener. And that was
Mhm.
something I would eat in the morning, or have in the morning on my way out to go to school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pretend there's not raw eggs in it because it makes me makes my tummy flip. So we pretend. I
And
don't know
doesn't
where
the
the
egg
eggs and
thicken it?
eggnog come in. Yeah, a little bit, but it's still just not like store bought. So I'm on a
Mm.
mission now. By the time this airs, I will have tried something, hopefully, so folks can ask. But for those of you listening, for the creamy marshmallow nutmeg overnight infusion, I love hearing how people, what it's like to make it, what it's like to enjoy it. And so when you make this recipe, let us know in the comments, let us know what it's like. And you can download your recipe card at herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or check out the show notes and there'll be a direct link there as well. And let us know about it. And it's fun. I think too, sometimes, when people start commenting like, oh, I made this and it was amazing and, tell about their experiences, it inspires other people to make it too. And then it just keeps growing. So, yeah. And that's, how we
Awesome.
get the most connection and results with herbs is when we, actually work with them and take them versus just listen about them. So encourage folks to actually get out there and do it.
For sure. And I love hearing adaptations too. So if people
Yeah.
like, oh, I started with that, but then I did this
Cool.
or I did that. I love hearing people's stories. And when I'm reading recipes online, I like to see what other people are swapping in or out and how it worked out for them. Pretty fun.
Yeah. Looking forward to hearing about all of that. Hey, it's Rosalee. Creating this podcast has been one of the most rewarding parts of my herbal work. And if you've found something meaningful here, whether it's a new perspective, a favorite recipe, or just a sense of calm, I want to let you know there's a good way to go even deeper. It's called the Podcast Circle. Inside, you'll get access to live classes taught by some of my favorite herbal teachers, behind-the-scenes updates, and a beautiful library of herbal resources that we've gathered over the years. But more than that, it's a space to connect with fellow plant lovers who care about the same things you do. And truly, your membership helps make this podcast possible. It's how we keep the episodes coming and the herbal goodness flowing. So if you're ready to be part of something more, something rooted in connection, head over to herbalpodcastcircle.com. I'd love to see you there. Well, Maria, I know we've covered a lot about marshmallow. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we go on?
I don't think so. I think we covered, I'm sure there's some little thing somewhere, but I think we covered most of the basics.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's such a fun plant. And yeah, I remember marshmallow being introduced like way back in the day. It was kind of like a slippery elm substitute. And so it was kind of like, oh, we have to use marshmallow because slippery elm is not sustainable. And I have come to love marshmallow so much. And it's, for its own gifts and benefits. And now I just think of it, although they're both demulcents, very different. And yeah, like you said, growing it in the garden too is just one of the delights of the garden, I feel like. So
yeah, I have only occasionally played with my own homegrown roots because I always hate digging the plant up. I have done it. Mostly, I think we did it for a photo shoot for one of the books. I was like, all right, plant, we're going to dig you out and cut up some of it and then put the rest back in. But I know Jim talks about that you can dig it up and cut some of it off and then put the crown back in the ground and it will keep growing. It's pretty resilient, but I have to admit, I'm usually just drying the above ground parts and then buying the roots. Or sometimes I'm lazy and I just buy the above ground parts too and enjoy the plant in my garden.
Yeah, I have also harvested it, but not as much because it's kind of easier just to get it. But what I've done is just like pull back the soil and take one of the roots out. I don't even unearth the whole thing. So
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Does yours attract Japanese beetles? We get those. We'll come and descend upon them. I don't know if they've got a new name for them nowadays, but beetles that eat leaves that tend to.
Yeah.
So we get those, but I don't worry about it too much. And I usually try to harvest more of it before that happens. Yeah. But I also have found that the more you harvest the stems, I'll usually just harvest a big stem, maybe about 2/3 of the way down, and then it sets up new shoots. So you end up with a more beautiful plant for a lot longer. It will eventually flop over in the rain or something, but you can tie it up if you're a good
I love what
gardener.
you said too. They're just so prolific that I love those plants, that are just so easy to grow and so prolific and so much medicine within them. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so excited to talk about your latest book, Herbal Gut Health. Oh my gosh. This book is phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, you cover everything that you would need to cover in a book. I just happened to open this page. A good poop. There's a whole section here on pooping, which as herbalists, we love. And of course,
love to talk about poop.
Here we go. Fabulous fiber right there.
Yeah.
No, this is a definitive book on herbal gut health. Like, how did we not have something like this before? But thank goodness you have now supplied us with it. I mean, this is going to be an incredible, first of all, it's super readable just to read through. And then it's going to be an incredible reference as well. I mean, you cover so many different things, right up into the very end where you're discussing, I love the section where you're looking at the different diseases, and it has, what it is, when to call the doctor, looking at diet, looking at lifestyles. You have protocols, I guess, which is what we'd call those. Oh, I loved this, the bean flatulence study talking about fiber. I mean, that kind of covers what we were already talking about. Looking at how introducing, beans slowly over time will help with gas. So these are, it's just a phenomenal book. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, I mean, I could just go on and on. I could gush about this book for you, but maybe we should hear about you, the author. How did this book come to be? How did you decide that you wanted to write a book about gut health?
Well, as you know, herbalists, we love to talk about digestive system health. It's one of our cornerstone areas of the body that we, focus on the nervous system. We focus on maybe some detoxification, and gut health is another real biggie in there. And so for us, this is one of the big ways that we tend to support our clients, whether they're coming in for digestive system support or they have some other health concern where improving gut health would potentially, in the big picture, improve whatever else is going on. So we love gut health. It was the biggest chapter in Body into Balance. And then when the publishers,
in case people don't know.
Thank you.
Body into Balance.
Yeah, like that. And a lot of similar content, but there's so much more in this book. So when I did the sleep book, the publishers had the idea of kind of diving into a specific topic. And so after we did that, I said, what I really want to do is gut health, because I could go so much more into it. And even in that book, we mentioned SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And as that book was going to the very last edits, I threw the initials into the dysbiosis section. I was just barely learning about SIBO at that time frame. So there's all that to talk about. There were so many more things to talk about that weren't in the book, and things I wanted to go into greater depth on. So I said to the publishers after submitting the sleep books that I really want to do one on gut health, but it's going to be bigger. It's going to be more original new content as well. And so we did. And once again, I was way over on my word count. So the book ended up being quite a bit bigger than they envisioned, which is standard scenario for Maria. Sorry, editors. But yeah, so that's how it came about. And it was really a labor of love. I had thought maybe this will be a pretty quick book to throw together. That was not the case at all.
How long did it take from conception, first started writing it to finish?
Well, I'd say I started writing it in January and was hoping, this was 2 years ago. I started writing it in January and was hoping it would be done by March or so. And I think I did meet my deadline-ish, but it definitely
took
this
in 3 months.
I could be lying about that. It was several months in the springtime. I can't remember exactly when the deadline was.
Total respect
actually, it was because I was finishing it up as I was going to Italy. And so it was the end of March, because we went to Italy in April. And I remember them even saying to me, you could have more time if you want. And I was like, I can't take more time because I'm going to Italy for 3 weeks and then I'm coming into a big class season. So it was very stressful. That last month or so was nonstop, 7 days a week. The book that's in process now, that's going in edits, my book number 5, was an even bigger project than this one was. But and then the edit rounds were like pretty intense, and
time.
the house flooded at the same time, and then I got COVID, and I was like, I'm crying uncle now. Like I can't do this edit round right now. Can we do this later? So there was a lot of time that went into writing the book, and a lot of time that went into all the various edit rounds of the book as well. And every time I reread something, I think of more things I want to say. Another thing my editors don't really love about me, but they still work with me and are nice to me.
No doubt, because you have these phenomenal books. I love all of the illustrations. I mean, the anatomy and physiology. I mean, this for anybody who's really well, there's so many layers to this. An herbal student could read this book and just get so much out of it in terms of just like a top down, really inclusive and well-rounded approach to digestion. And then there's also, it's just such an approachable book that you could pick it up and go from here and there. You don't have to read the anatomy section and interest you. Of course, one thing I really love, being a fan of the flavors and tastes of herbs, I love that you've got the bitters, you got the sours, you also have the herbal actions in there, carminative, antimicrobial, demulcents. So yeah, and then I have to give a shout out to Anna Farba, who is one of the illustrators, the main illustrator for the book. She was also the illustrator for the book.
She did the plants.
She did the plants.
Yeah. And I was so excited when they told me who they found for the illustrators. And then I looked her up and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So she did Wild Remedies.
For Wild Remedies.
Yeah. And that's phenomenal. She's just a fantastic artist. This book is just so beautiful. I mean, it's just, so beautiful. Those of you who are watching get to see the insides here. But yeah, I couldn't, like, the second I got this book and opened it up, I mean, I always have high expectations of you because you have already like raised the bar with, your incredible contributions. And this one, I mean, this is a phenomenal book. It's absolutely phenomenal. I honestly think every herbalist needs to get this book. I do not say that about every book that comes on the show.
I don't even have to say anything. I'm just going to make you the new publicist for the book.
Oh my gosh. Well, you have done the work. I mean, this speaks for itself. I mean, it's just incredible.
And huge shout out to the story publishing team as well, because it wasn't just me. It was also the 3 illustrators and multiple editors and, all the different people who worked on the book. And so that's one of the things I love about working with story is you really do get an awesome team that helps take a huge, word count, word doc and makes it into a really gorgeous book. So props to them for that.
Yeah. Props.
I told them what I wanted them to do, but they actually did it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah. So this book comes out January 13th. I think it's published, and available wherever books are sold. And you're going to have a course that goes along with it too. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah. So by the time this airs, it will be up and out, so people will be able to learn more about it. But I believe it's going to be 3 2-hour classes that are going to happen in March. So it'll give people a chance to get the book and get a little bit familiar with it, and also for me to go through the next edit round of book number 5 in February. And then as I come out of that, hopefully I'll be done with that and we'll get to do the gut health course, and then I'll jump into all the other classes I'm teaching in 2026.
Right.
So it should be a lot of fun. So so there is a Easter egg. I always want them to put it a little further up in the book, but because of whatever reason, they usually put it in the back. So this book, kind of like the sleep book, comes with that free course. So if you're on page 336 under the resources and helpful websites, there is a webs page and a promo code that you can use to find and then sign up for the little mini course for free, because it's a free bonus item for people who buy the book. And people can get the book through me and get signed copies, but you have access to that free course no matter where you get it from. And it's a lot cheaper to get my book other places than it is to get it through me. I cannot compete with the free shipping and all of that.
Right. But the fact that it's been held in your hands and you get to sign, and we get the signed copy and get to support you is awesome. How can folks stay in touch with you? What's the best way?
The best way is probably my website, which is wintergreenbotanicals.com. We'll generally have whatever I'm up to, plus a whole bunch more free info. And there is going to be, there already is, and there'll be more on it by the time this airs, is a little gut hub. So you'll get to learn a little bit about digestion to prime yourself for the big book. But and then on there you can sign up for my newsletter, and my newsletter comes out about monthly and keeps you posted on what I'm doing, and always has some recipes or other little useful tidbits for folks that go with the seasons. And those would be the two main ways to keep tabs on me. But I am, of course, I'm on Instagram, and I am on Facebook, and I do have a YouTube page that most of my videos are unlisted for my students, but I do keep them for free. So there are some free videos out there as well, including a list that is videos that other folks have done. So like this one will go on that list too. So
nice.
You can learn about me there.
Wonderful. Well, I just feel like this is such a service to the herbal community. This is going to be a classic that people reach for literally decades to come. It's going to help so many people. It's going to inform so many people. Yeah, just lots of gratitude that you've created, and lots of gratitude for a whole story team for creating something so beautiful too. It really is a delight. It has like the perfect amount of design in it. I think like it just adds to it and elevates it in a way. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on and on, obviously.
Thank you.
But before I let you go, Maria, I have one last question for you, and that question is, what would you include in your herbal first aid kit?
Well, for me in my life, when I do my first aid classes, I often will tell people, like, don't just say these are the things I need, but like, what do you deal with when you're traveling? And for me, it's immune system, which is pretty common for a lot of people. And because I very easily catch things when I'm traveling, I usually don't sleep well, and then I catch stuff. And then the other big one is nervous system, and especially for sleeping. So, so for the immune system, I have a couple different things, but the biggie is elderberry. I'll either make syrup or I'll buy some gummies and take them that way. And then I do love my echinacea capsules, phytocaps that I get that are a liquid extract inside of a pill, because I don't like the way echinacea tastes. And those are my biggies. I pretty much, when I went to Italy, I think I literally had 10 pounds of supplements with me, which were my daily supplements, and then boatloads of elderberry and echinacea. And I traveled with people who were sick, and not only at that conference that you and I were at, but also with my family afterwards. I was with sick people the entire time, like, knock on wood, I didn't get sick, which was amazing. And then usually I'll carry kava, which I don't normally. I'll go with something that's more from my garden for sleep or nervous system. But I love how kava is so broadly helpful in a lot of different nervous system states. So for me, it's one I don't use in my day-to-day, but I do like to have in my first aid kit for travel.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the elderberry echinacea for travel. That's a big one for me too. Yeah. I love how you're like, I don't like the way echinacea tastes. Then you also are choosing kava, which has a similar but different acrid.
I don't mind kava.
Really?
Maybe
that was different.
So kava, we probably talked about this in a prior one. Kava was one of the first herbs I ever took because I had panic attacks and insomnia after a stressful event in college. And so I associate kava with chilling out. And so I kind of like the taste of it. And little fun fact that I discovered by accident is that if you get it on your throat, it helps numb out like a cough tickle because of its numbing action. And so now occasionally, if you're not sleeping because you have that irritated tickle in the back of your throat, it can help with that too.
Valerian's like that for me. Like valerian also came to me at a time of great need. And so now when people are like, oh, valerian, I'm like, oh, to me, it just tastes like peace, so
that was the other one I got. It was the 90s, and so that was what you were given when you went into an herb shop. I can't sleep and I've got panic attacks. Here's kava and valerian, and they worked. And but I still don't like the taste of valerian, but kava I appreciate.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Well, Maria, this has been so awesome. It's just always such a pleasure to get to spend time with you. And you always give us such a major download of herbal wisdom. So deeply appreciative of that. And I'm really excited to hear folks' impression of this amazing book. As I said, if you're listening to this podcast, you definitely want this book. And that's my biggest recommendation. I don't give it to every book I see. I definitely big stamp of approval for this one. Yeah, phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm super honored. And I love your books. I know I've gushed about them before, but
Aw.
I will say that my students' homework got so much better when they started using your books at your website. So thank you for that. And
Aw.
also just for this podcast, I love listening to other people speak. And I just love the way that you spread, very accessible herbalism in the community. It's deeply appreciated. My students and so many people I come into contact talk about it and just love it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, big shout out to the whole team who makes this possible. Like you said, it's like we just get to be the face, but yeah, so much goes into all of this. So yeah, deep gratitude. Thank you so much, Maria. Welcome back
Thank you.
anytime.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks so much for listening. You can download your illustrated recipe card from today's episode. Just head over to herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or check out the show notes for a link. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this herbal community so I can deliver even more herbal goodies your way. This podcast is made possible in part by our awesome students. This week's student spotlight is on Trisha Pogue in California. Well, Trisha has been part of the Rooted Medicine Circle since its very first year, and for years she was juggling full-time work and caregiving while she kept returning to the course again and again, each time determined to keep learning. And then last fall, she set an intention to complete the entire class, and she did it. So kudos, Trisha. I really think her story is just this beautiful reminder that steady commitment, even in small steps, can lead to big transformations. I, for one, have loved having you in class over the years, and I'm also just so proud of you for sticking with it and getting it done despite your incredible workload and caregiving. Well, among Trisha's favorite creations were her infused oil and her family's treasured boo-boo cream, and I know she's making all of these with love and intention. Well, to honor her contributions, Mountain Rose Herbs is sending Trisha a $50 gift certificate to stock up on their incredible selection of organically and sustainably sourced herbal supplies. So thank you, Mountain Rose Herbs, for supporting our amazing students. Okay, you've made it to the very end of the show, which means you get a gold star and this herbal tidbit. Well, one of my good friends and fellow herbalist, Jim McDonald, once said something along the lines of, "Herbalism is so cool because we have demulcents. Who else has demulcents? Nobody." I love that quote so much. I actually put it on a t-shirt, like ironed it on old school, and wore it to a conference that he was at as a surprise. But that's another story. But Jim's right. Demulcents are pretty unique to herbalism. Demulcents, like marshmallow, create a soothing, slippery layer over irritated tissues. And in doing so, they don't really force the body to do something or override symptoms. Instead, it's just this super basic action of protecting, moistening, and giving tissues a chance to calm down and repair themselves. And that's why demulcents can be so helpful in so many situations, like we're hearing from Maria, from digestive irritation to sore throats to dry or inflamed tissues throughout the body. I mean, irritated lungs, heartburn, sunburn, demulcents really feel like they can do it all in terms of that hot irritation that needs soothing, moistening care. So yeah, that's just a great reminder that some of the coolest herbal actions aren't really flashy at all, right? They're just very practical, they're gentle, they're protective, and incredibly versatile. All right, as always, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I'll see you in the next one.